Welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Josh Mansfield. I'm a teacher and podcast producer over here at the Demon. And joining me today, I have Jacob. Jacob, you just crushed your LSAT and you're here to tell your story. So glad to have you.
Josh, I appreciate you having me on the show.
It's going to be great. So, Jacob, let's start. You just took the August test. What did you
Mm.
score? And what score got you to hang up the boots and say you're done?
I am incredibly grateful. I've been with the Demon for a while, since last October. I got a 176 on my August administration. I was signed up for September. I was supposed to take it yesterday. I had the test registered for yesterday, about to take September, registered for October. I'm doing
Yep.
the Demon way, right?
You did it
Keep
right. You did it
keep
right.
registering it. And I was talking with my study group, right? I had a study group, and the
Hmm.
day before the August, scores released, I was like, I don't know what I would have to hang up. Because, I was getting some practice tests in the mid 170s and some high 170s.
Sure.
And I said, 175, I'm happy.
Okay.
Like, if I got below 175, I'm like, I might take another test just because I think I could score over
Love
175,
it.
or at least a 175.
Yeah.
But 176, I was more than happy with, so
That's
happy with that.
congratulations. Well, I'm excited to talk about studying, but I do want to it's something I love to do. I love just hearing the backstory a little bit. So, what got you into studying for the LSAT and deciding that law school was the path that you were going to take?
Oh man, so I have a political science undergrad degree.
Okay.
I was always interested in politics, and I think politics and law sort of goes hand in hand, right?
Hmm.
My day job, I do a lot of research. I work for a news station, and so I do a lot
Oh,
of public
okay.
affairs programming.
Yeah.
And with that, we're sort of on the border between two states. So, when both states are sort of in their, like the legislative periods, right? I do a ton of research. I talk to lawmakers. I talk with politicians, and I think I've always been interested in that. So
Okay.
that really, I thought like law was just like, I think I want to, be a part of this and practice this.
Sure.
So I sort of started last October. I had a friend that goes to a local university. We have a T20 school
Okay.
in the city I live in, and she, was a 3L in the law school, and she, used to be a Reddit mod, actually, funnily enough, at the law school admissions.
All right. Because Reddit has a source of all truth, right? That's
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Uh,
So you've got this adjacent field. You're really kind of like involved. You're seeing the law. This begins to interest you. You start studying in October then. So we're almost a year in to your
yeah.
studying. All right. So let's start. Did you do a cold diagnostic or something
I,
like it?
yeah, yeah. I think I maybe looked at like when you pay for like LSAC Advantage or whatever,
Sure.
you have to like, I think they have like previously used to be like Khan Academy stuff or whatever
Okay.
on LSAC
Okay.
Advantage. I think I might have looked at that for like a week. And then I did a diagnostic, 156. I did another practice test the week after, 156. I was consistent.
Okay.
Okay, pretty consistent there.
That was your level. All right. All right.
Yeah.
Love it. So you start studying. Was August your first official test?
No. So
Okay.
August was my second test. I took it in June.
Okay. What'd you score in June?
June, I got a 160.
Okay.
So,
So hold on. I'm gonna pause you real fast because using my LSAT brain here. There's something here that happened. Either you took a test when you weren't ready to,
mhm.
or you were ready and something went horribly wrong on test day. Which one was it?
It has to lean towards the second one. I don't
Okay.
think anything went horribly wrong.
Okay.
Obviously, by June, I'd been studying for, that would have been like, 8, 9 months maybe at that point. I was getting into the low 170s, right?
Yep.
I was pretty consistently low 170s, had some high 160s in there, right?
Okay.
Maybe a 173, 174 was on my high end, 167, 168 on the low end, just depending on the day.
Sure.
And June, I think I just had let the nerves get the best of me. I
Okay.
think I just had you know, a lot of that energy. I felt like I wanted to do really good on this test, right?
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
think that just got the best of me. It was obviously an underperformance, right? I'd been working with a study group for quite a few months, and they were all like, Jacob, how did this happen? So I sort of just hit the ground running, and I think it lit a fire under me for
Okay.
the August test. I think I was like, okay, we're gonna lock in, and we're not gonna let this happen again.
Great. So you get your 160 back. You say this lights a fire. I want to talk a little bit about your study group. I know we were
Mhm.
chatting just a little bit about it. I happen to be familiar with your study group. I would love to hear what your study group is like. What do you accomplish? Why do you feel like that was such a big part of your study journey?
Oh man, these are people who are incredible individuals. People who have done like work that is in sort of the law field and
Hmm.
outside the law field. And I think it was interesting enough. I think it's a lot of older people. I'm sort of
Mm.
on the younger end of the spectrum. I'm probably about 3, 4 years out of college now.
Okay.
And a lot of them are like a decade, 15 years. But that group just really, I mean, more than just the studying together, right? So we
Hmm.
would get on a few nights a week, maybe 3 nights a week we would study together. But more than that, we just, sort of became like this family where like two of them had kids while we've been studying for the LSAT, right? And so we've seen all these like sort of live like these moments in their lives, these achievements, and we've been able to celebrate it together. And we'll just like, we'll study for an hour and then we'll just chit chat for like 2 more hours. And I think that sort of community and socialization is incredibly important.
Hmm.
And I think keeps a lot of people honest on their studying LSAT
Mm.
journey, right? It can feel lonesome at times, right? When like you're by yourself and like you tell your parents, you tell your friends, but they don't really know what the LSAT is like or law school or grad school.
Yeah.
But these are people who are in the exact same boat. And it's
Hmm.
just really nice to have that sort of community with you.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. How did you find said study group? Sorry, it was a quick question. I waited till you were getting
Yeah.
a drink.
It was from the Demon Discord.
Okay.
Um, I think one day, one of our members, Ben, was in one of the voice channels. I joined, chit chatted with him. He knew he would study with some of the other members. I think they sort of, got together through the Demon Lives, through sort of
Okay.
the classes they
Yep.
have. And one of the members, Damon, has, he got a group together, invited people, and it's just I got lucky enough to talk with the right people, and it's been amazing.
Damon's now our student organization outreach coordinator and veterans liaison here at the Demon. Damon's great. Um,
Fantastic.
Fantastic. So the point I'm hoping to emphasize: number one, there's great resources on the Discord. We'll make sure to link that in the show notes. And all you need is a Demon free membership in order to join. The live is a good opportunity to talk with classmates, but you can come join the Discord with just a Demon free account. lsatdemon.com/free. Go get your account. Come join the Discord. Jacob, from the sounds of it, and this is what I was trying to get at a little bit, you didn't know anybody of the group prior, right? It's not like you had an in already. You met them, just random strangers through the Discord.
Yes, none
Yeah.
of us knew each other in person. We all live in different states.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The technology age is great in that way. So I'd love to hear a little bit more specifically on the studying side. What did you
Mhm.
do as a study group when you were focused on LSAT material?
What we usually did is we usually mostly focused on logical reasoning just because that is a lot easier to study with in a group setting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we would usually hop in the Discord. One person would pull up, their account, and they'd sort of hit drill on LR. And what we would end up doing is one person would read the question or read the prompt,
Mm-hmm.
read the questions, pick their answer, and then before they even submitted it, you know, after they picked their choice, then people would start to speak up and maybe they'd be like, you picked D here, but I actually think A. And we'd sort of talk through those answers until then we submitted it, found out what we got. We
Okay.
did it with RC a few times, and we started an app in the last few months. When someone would do like a timed section or a test, we would then bring it into the study group and say, hey, I got 6 wrong here. I want the rest of the group to go through these 6 wrong answer choices and sort of get their thoughts on how they went through these questions and maybe see something I missed or even these hard questions is really good to like go through together. And
Yeah.
again, that was probably 2, 3 times a week we did that.
Okay. And I think that's really insightful because I'm always interested to hear in the different way that groups take advantage of like that kind of community in order to study for the LSAT. I don't know if I know a lot of people who do like the time section and then bring the ones they miss. I don't hear as much of people who just come up and drill and kind of group drill together. So that's really interesting. What do you feel like was most helpful about that for you?
Um, man, I think it was really helpful, at least in the beginning, to just get other people's thought processes on questions. If you're struggling with something like necessary and sufficient assumption,
Hmm.
right, where there's, that nuance, where there is that difference, something where you can hear somebody read a question out loud give you their thought process on, oh, that's not wrong, that's not right because, that's a necessary answer, but we need a sufficient answer to this, right? We need
Yeah,
something
yeah.
solid to that. It helps you out, right? By the end of it, I think you sort of grow into sort of you're working together to, oh, I'm really trying to help these people solve their, they're sort of still missing parts where they're missing it in the LSAT. And I think that's brilliant because you sort of can then get something that you can teach back, and it's sort of
Hmm.
full circle like that.
Yes. Teaching is one of the best ways to learn the LSAT. And we've talked before, like you find somebody in your group or just a study buddy who maybe is a little bit different range than you. The person who is lower benefits from having somebody to help guide them and answer questions. The person who is higher benefits from having to learn to explain those things in terms that everyone understands. And so I definitely see the value in that as well. During your LSAT study journey, would you say were some of the topics or things that you found to be particularly difficult?
Oh man, I think it probably changed throughout the LSAT, right? Obviously at the beginning, I think, 156 is obviously a fantastic diagnostic score, right?
Sure is.
You can go to like, most law schools with 156. Obviously, I think most people you put in the time to study for the LSAT, you can score beyond that, right? The
Yes.
demon says that over and over and over. I
Yep.
probably struggled with everything. I think the first thing I really had to unlock that helped me out the most was understanding question types,
Hmm.
right? Where I'm like, oh, this is, a sufficient assumption question. This is a necessary assumption question. Strength and weaken, right? I think once you can sort of figure out a question type and figure out like what does that want to get out of it, right? A strength in question, you want to see what's the conclusion, what's going to really strengthen this, right?
Hmm.
I struggled with that for a long time. I think supported and must be true questions can be really tricky. Sometimes there's just hard supported questions where you sort of have to read it like a main point in an RC. Um,
Sure. Yeah.
so it just
So,
sort of changed over time.
makes sense. Never really a single thing that you're like, this is the thing I had to get over though. Just every day was looking at something new.
Yeah, every day was something new. I think in the
Yeah.
first 2 months I struggled with sufficient and necessary. I think everyone does that because those are just hard topics to grasp on. But, nothing particularly sticked out besides, I probably did like, I don't know, 10,000 questions over, I don't know, like 10 months.
Good. I think that's a really important lesson is you've got to do the quantity as well. And like, but it's got to be quality, right? You have
Yes.
to do a lot, but you have to do a lot of good quality work. Um, what were some of the practices or pieces of advice that you found to be the most impactful that you had received while you studied for the LSAT?
I think there's one piece of advice that I put above all the rest, and that's
Okay.
in my personal opinion is study every day and give me your best hour,
Hmm.
right? I sort of think of it like weightlifting. I'm really into strength training. I go to the
Okay.
gym 6 days a week. Somebody who
Okay.
goes to the gym 6 days a week but has like a terrible routine
Uh huh.
is going to go so much further than the person who goes 1 day a week and has the perfect routine. It's just that time just, builds over itself and
Mm-hmm.
like you will learn. We can fix your routine. You can fix like your studying, you can fix all of
Yep.
this,
Yep.
right? Like, but I just need you to get in, like reading about the LSAT on Reddit, watching videos about the LSAT, talking with people about the LSAT. None of that is studying for the LSAT. I need you I need you to like every day just give me an hour. And I know it's hard, right? I'm not going to say and sit here and be like it's easy. Some of you people, some people who are listening to this, they might have a kid that they have to take care of. Maybe there's a loved one, maybe taking
Mm-hmm.
care of parents, they have a mortgage, they're in school, they have a full-time job. They may be balancing a couple of jobs.
Yeah.
This is tough. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard sometimes to figure out and find that hour. And I'll tell you, in my first 3 months of studying, like there were days where I'd open up my laptop at like 10 p.m. and I was like, I don't have the energy for this. I had a long day at work. I
Uh-huh.
worked some more hours. I had to make
Uh-huh.
dinner. I had to go to the gym. And I just sat here and it was like, you know, it's hard. But
Mm-hmm.
my last 3 months, I hit the summer, like, because I'd been studying at that point for like 8 months. It was natural. Like it just felt every day a part of my life. Like I'm opening up my laptop. I'm going to study for my best hour. I tracked all my hours, right? I had the Google Notes app. I was a complete psycho about that. I
Sure.
was like, 10 a.m. I started, 11:15 I stopped. I did like 450 hours. I tracked it.
Okay, all
So,
right, 450 hours. There we go. That's funny. So I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I am curious to hear. And the I think that it might have been a little bit more intentional than maybe you've let on. You talk about the best hour. You said
mhm,
in the first 3 months you'd sometimes open up your laptop at 10 p.m. Then in your
mhm.
story about the tracker, you're talking about 10 a.m. Did you find that the time when you're studying made a big difference?
Oh, yeah, at the end of it, I did it every morning before work. Actually, 8 a.m., I usually started 8 a.m. or like 8:15 or whatever. That I
Mm-hmm.
just felt like in the morning I could get it out of the way.
Yeah.
And I actually felt like I had a lot of energy. And there were some days where I like studied in the morning and like I got off work in the evening time. I'm like, I want to crack this open again, right?
Sure. Sure.
I did evenings after work for a long time. I think eventually I just forced myself to get up in the morning. But as long as you're getting an hour a day in, I think that's the hardest part. And
Mm-hmm.
once you can get that down, taking the evening, the mornings. I think I ended up doing my tests like both June and August in the morning. I don't know if that helped at all. I could have done it in the afternoon. I don't know if it would have made a difference, to be
I
honest with you.
if you're getting a 176, I'm pretty sure it doesn't make much of a difference. You don't you don't gimmick your way into a 176 by the time of day that you take your LSAT. Great. What were when you like look back, and you see this journey, and I I've never asked this question on a podcast before, but it's something I've kind of been acute to.
Mm.
How have you seen the way that you think both about the test and just like think like logically change?
I would think like every few months, like in the beginning especially, like on the third month, I think like your first month of studying, second month of studying, you might not get that far, right?
Uh-huh.
Between your
Uh-huh.
diagnostic and then, but like the third month, you're just somehow like you're like, man, I'm not missing questions like I'm used to. And by that fifth month, you're like, I'm not, I just for whatever reason, I like read these questions and I'm like, I just am like, oh, A is just, like bullshit. I don't have to read that, right?
Uh-huh.
Like I can
Uh-huh.
just
Yep.
immediately go on to B. And even, I took the test in August and, I kept studying after I took my August test, right? Preparing for the September administration.
Yep.
I was like, man, I am sharper than when I took the August administration, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
and I obviously got a great score, but I was like, man, in my August, I was just so much sharper somehow, more refined with it. And like I think I could probably take like, I didn't do phenomenal on standardized tests in schools, right? I didn't do bad, but I was always like average. And I think I really thought like anybody can can get good at these, right? I think that was my biggest
That's a great
takeaway with
lesson.
this.
Yeah.
Like you can get good at this if you put in the hours, you put in the time, and you have a drive for it. Like I don't think it's impossible for anybody. There
Uh-huh.
was a podcast where Nathan talked, that someone wrote in and they had the same diagnostic as me. They had a 156.
Okay.
And he told the person, he was like, I don't just believe that you can get in the 170s. I know you can get in the 170s. You can get in the high 170s.
Uh-huh.
And like that was a time I heard this and I was like sort of downtrodden. I got like I missed like 8 questions in a drill set and I was just doing terrible. And for anybody who's listening, my hope would just be because I like to listen to the student success stories
Uh-huh.
when, I was, I'm a longtime listener of the pod now at this point. Um, like I believe like that you can do this. Like if you just sit down for the LSAT, you know, I have complete faith in the world that you can get where you want to go. And I think I sort of got off track from your
No,
question
no,
there,
no.
Scott.
This is
I'm
great.
so
This
sorry.
is
I'm so
great.
sorry.
No, I love where this went. I wasn't even sure. No, I'm thrilled. I think that's such a great message. It is a message that people need to hear. I see on Reddit, and I'm sure you see it on Reddit too, where people will
Mhm,
be like, "I've studied for 6 months. I've studied for 8 months. I was at a 150, and now I'm at a 158." And they're like, "This
mhm.
test, like, I just have to settle. I'm not. I'm never going to be better at this." And I'm with you. I really think that like a lot of people, most people in this world can get into the 160s if they just are willing to commit the time it takes to get there. I
Yeah.
completely agree.
Those breakthrough moments will happen.
They
And,
will.
I think it's hard sometimes when you're by yourself to like have that belief, right?
Hmm.
But, like, I think, sort of Ben, Nathan, I think they've seen enough people do this. And I've seen this with my own study group.
Yep.
I've seen people go from the 140s to the high 160s, like
Yep.
almost
Yes.
170, 168.
Yes.
And I've seen, at this point, I'm not the only person in my study group with a 170 score, right? Like
Uh,
I've seen this trajectory happen over 6 months that I'm like, I believe anybody can do this. I have
yep.
full confidence.
Yep. I love that. I completely agree. All right. So you have the score now. What's the plan?
Oh my goodness. I am getting all my application materials. Obviously, submissions for law school applications are in September or
Yep.
October 1st. Some of them open up, mid-September. So right now, I'm just sort of getting all my essays written. I'm trying my best here. And, my hope is to get all my applications in by late September and early October. I've got about, I'm trying to be broad with my
Good.
applications, so I'll probably, get like over a dozen schools I'll apply for.
Good. Good to hear. Good to hear. Well, awesome. Jacob, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate hearing your story and you being willing to come share. It was great talking to you, and congratulations again on the killer score.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
If you'd like to email in any questions or your LSAT success story, email daily@lsatdemon.com. Thanks for listening.